Numbers chapter 13. Okay? Numbers chapter 13. For those of you who are more comfortable with Korean, it would be Minsugi chapter 13. All right? Numbers chapter 13. Okay, when you have it to Numbers chapter 13, before we read the verses, let me give you a little bit of a background, okay? The Israelites. Where are the Israelites from? Israel. Okay, pretty good. All right, not bad. All right. The Israelites had gone to Egypt and lived there for many generations. And as they were living there, the Egyptians turned them into slaves. And for hundreds of years, they lived for many, many generations. They lived in Egypt as slaves. And they cried out to God, God, we need your salvation. Save us from this misery. Save us from this slavery. God, when will you hear us? When will you bring our deliverer? And for many years, God appeared to be silent, but God had a plan. And eventually, God sends someone to bring them out of slavery, bring them out of Egypt. Who was it? Very good. It wasn't Noah, right? Noah was the guy who built that boat, okay? So it was Moses. Moses goes to Pharaoh and he says, let my people go, right? And then Pharaoh says no. And then all these things happen in Egypt. And then eventually Pharaoh says, go take your people. And Moses leads them, right? Tons of them, so many of them, entire tribes of Israelites. He brings them all out and they're going now to the promised land. The land of Canaan. It's the promised land. The Bible says a land flowing with milk and honey. I've never lived in a land flowing with milk and honey. I probably wouldn't want to live in a land flowing with milk and honey. That's just kind of weird. It's just a figure of speech. It's to say that it's a land that is good to live on, a wealthy land, a fertile land, a great, wonderful, amazing land. This is the promised land that God promised the Israelites that he would lead them to. Okay? And as we know, as they were wandering in the wilderness, they had some good times. For example, when the Red Sea was in front of them and Pharaoh changed his mind and the Egyptian soldiers are coming after them, right? And they were stuck. Right? What did Moses do? He raised his hand, he prays to the Lord, and the sea divides, and they all walk through the sea, right? They had some good times. They also had some bad times. We're starving, Moses. What are we going to eat? We're thirsty, Moses. What are we going to drink? It would have been better to go back to Egypt and die there. They did this for a long time until they finally reached the entrance of the promised land. And when they get there, Moses is a wise leader, and he says, you know what? We can't just walk into a foreign land and say, hey, everybody, we're taking over, right? There's strategy involved. There's planning involved. And so what he does is there were 12 tribes, and 11 of those tribes had warriors in them, okay? Because one of the tribes was a tribe of priests. They did all of the worshiping, leading the worship and things like that. They didn't have any warriors. But 11 of the tribes, of the 12 tribes, had warriors. And Moses said, choose a leader from each tribe to go into this promised land as spies. Check the place out. See what kind of place it is and come up with a strategy for how we're going to conquer this promised land. That's great leadership, right? He doesn't just go in without thinking, without planning, without, he says, choose a leader from each of the tribes. And so each of the tribes chooses a leader. And there's 11 of them, and they go in to spy out the land. And Moses had specific instructions. Tell us what the land is like. Is it really that fertile? Is it really that good? Is it really that productive? Right? Is the land really that good? And secondly, what kind of people live there? Are they small people or big people? Are they strong people or weak people? Are they small cities that we can just go and conquer one at a time? Or are they large cities? Are they wide open? Or are they fortified with walls and soldiers and strong defenses? Check these things out and come back and report to me. Great leadership so far. But Moses isn't the only leader I want to talk about. Are you praying? Excuse, is she praying? Are you praying? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were praying. Yeah. In which case, I shouldn't have interrupted if I thought you were praying. My bad. My bad. If they're praying, leave them alone. Okay. And so he says, but Moses isn't the only leader we want to talk about. We want to talk about two particular leaders. There were 11 of them that went. There's 11 of them that went, and they all came back, and they gave a report. Numbers chapter 13. Look at verse 25. Numbers chapter 13, verse 25. It says, do you guys find it? Numbers 13:25. You don't have a Bible? Oh, he doesn't have one either? And he doesn't have one either? You're the no Bible group. Okay. Well, you know what? I'll read it really carefully and clearly. Just pay attention. Okay? Here we go. Okay, Numbers chapter 13, verse 25 says this. At the end of 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. So they did their due diligence, right? They didn't just go in a couple days and come back. They scoped the place for 40 days, and then they came back. Look at verse 26. They came back to Moses and Aaron, Moses' brother, and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. So they brought everybody together. There, they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. And so then the Bible says that there was a cluster of grapes, and it took 2 men to carry 1 cluster of grapes. Crazy. All right. Yeah. And so they're saying, it's true. It's true that this place is really fertile. The land is really good. Farming is going to be fantastic. But look at verse 28. But, remember what Pastor West said. Whenever you see a but in the Bible, it's a big but. Okay? It's an important but. And so then, look what he said. They say, it's true. The land is great. It's flowing with milk. And oh my, look at these grapes. But, verse 28, but the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. Yeah, Anak, warrior. Yeah, okay. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. There are tons of people defending all of these cities, and they're fortified. Yes, the land is wonderful, but essentially they're saying, we're never going to get in. It's great. The land is wonderful, but we're never going to get in. These people are strong and mighty. These cities are fortified. These are the leaders now. The leaders of the tribes in front of the whole congregation saying, look guys, this land is great. We're never going to get there. Not possible. It's not going to happen. You know, this whole retreat, we've been hearing in seminars and in sermons and in our small groups and stuff that in one way or another, we're all leaders. We're all going to be leaders. We all lead and influence in one way or another, right? What kind of a leader are you? How do you influence others? Right? If we use the word leader, you might not think, oh, that's not me. But what about influence? How do you influence others? Do you influence others, for example, to do the right thing? Do you influence others to have courage? Do you influence others to not give up and move forward? Or do you influence others to be stupid? Like some of us do that. We're so stupid, and the way that we behave and the way that we act causes other people to be stupid, dumb, rebellious, weak, silly. Right? And you're leading those people in that way. We all influence or lead in one way or another. Many times as influencers or as leaders, we influence people in a way that debilitates them, causes them to become weak, causes them to give up, causes them to lose heart. When you enter a room, what happens to that room? Are people encouraged and strengthened and challenged? Or are they sad and depressed and debilitated? Sedge, can you turn the thermostat all the way down? Brian, can you open that door a crack? Okay. So here are the leaders of the Israelites' tribes. And they say, it's true, the land is great, but we're never going to get there. We're never going to make it. That is their leadership. Remember, this is the promised land. When we say promised land, who made the promise? There's a conversation. Who made the promise? God made the promise. Does God keep his promises? Does he ever not keep his promises? Are you sure? You sure? God always keeps his promises. He does in one way or another. He always keeps his promises. And God promised this land to the Israelites. We read this and we say, God promised this land. Moses, the head leader dude, told all these other leaders to go and check it out, and they checked it out and they came back. Why are they giving a bad report? Why are they giving a bad attitude? Right? They're not being faithful. So we can kind of look down on them. But at the same time, aren't they just being honest? Aren't they looking at the situation and saying, look, here's reality? Are you a realistic type of leader? Do you say, it would be nice if we can do this, and this, but in reality, we can't do it, right? Ideally, we'll be able to kind of do this. If everything works out perfectly, if everybody does their job, then we'll be able to accomplish this, and this, but let's be real, it's not going to happen. Is that a good leader? God promised this land to the people, and they were being, quote unquote, realistic. We're never going to make it. But look at verse 30. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Does Caleb know something that nobody else knows? Is he the only one that knows that God promised this land? No, everybody knows it. Everyone knows that God promised this land. And yet everybody's saying, we can't do it. These are the leaders who have no trust in God, who have no confidence in the people, their own soldiers. They just look at what's in front of them and they say, look, reality says we can't make it. And Caleb, in his leadership, silences them all. And he says, we can do this. We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Whoa, so what happens? Everybody gets inspired, right? Yeah, you're right, Caleb. Man, what was I thinking? Yes, God promised, so let's go. Is that what happens? It would be so nice if. Have you guys ever been in that situation where you're a leader of like a project or a group or something, and people are like, "Oh man, I don't think we're gonna finish it on time." I don't think. And you stood up, and then the spotlight was on you, and then the music's playing in the background, and you say, "Friends, do not be dismayed. Do not be down. We know we procrastinated, and we had 3 months to do this project, and we're going to do it the night before. And I know you think that we can't get it done, but friends, we can do this with your brains, with your diligence, with your humor, and your video capabilities. We can do this." And you inspired them, right? And it would be great if they said, "Oh, you're right. Let's do this. Oh my goodness." And then you came up with this great project, turned it in, got an A+, and got into, I don't know, SPU, right? Like, you're so happy. That's not what happens regularly in our lives, right? We try to inspire people. We try to say, even in our Christian walk, we say, "Hey guys, come on, as Christians, we should be doing it this way. We should be going here. We should be doing," and we try to inspire them with our leadership, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" That's verse 31. But the men who had gone up with him said, "We can't attack these people. They're stronger than we are." Duh, reality. Yeah. And Caleb said, "Silence! We can do this. Let's go." And then instead of everybody going, "Yeah," they're going, "We can't do this. They're stronger than us. That's it. They're stronger than us. We can't do this." And then, not only did these other leaders say, "Hey guys, we can't do this because they're stronger than us," look what they do next. Look at verse 32. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there." The descendants of Anak came from Nephilim. They're supposed to be giants. "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Oh man, if you're not going to support me, if you're not going to be on my side, then just be quiet. Right? Don't you feel like that sometimes? When you're leading a group, when you're leading something, like, if you're not going to support me, it's hard enough as it is, right? It's tough enough as it is to come to church on time, to serve at the church, to obey the pastor, to obey the teachers, to try to live the kind of life that the Bible tells us to live. It's hard enough to do that on my own. But if you're not going to follow, if you're not going to be on my side, if you're not going to support me, then just be quiet. Don't you feel like that sometimes? But these other guys, they're not quiet. They go against Caleb, directly against him, and they start to spread rumors. Oh, the opposition. You guys, when Satan works, when Satan wants to attack you, when he wants to stop you from obeying God, when he wants to stop you from exercising your faith, it won't just be doubt in your own heart. Everybody around you will start going against you. And it seems like it's me against everyone. Have you ever felt that way before? You're the only one at church wanting to get something started. You're the only one at church that wants to really, come on, guys, let's go. And the other people, it's one thing if they just say, "Oh, I don't want to. That's great. But they're like, "No, we can't. No, we're not going to do it. No, we tried that before. It's not going to work. No, we're going to, And who do you think you are? Who gave you the authority, right? It's not like you're so holy. It's not like you're so perfect, right? When's the last time you did something right at church, right?" And they start attacking you like this. That's exactly what's happening to Caleb. What do you do in that situation? Chapter 14. Yeah, we're doing multiple chapters, man. Chapter 14, verse 1. That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, the top leaders, right? The top leaders. And the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in Egypt or in the desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" I'm sorry, but I've heard that before. Every time the Israelites go through some kind of hardship after coming out of Egypt, every time they go through some kind of difficulty, when something doesn't go their way, they say this exact same thing. Come on, it's the same tired, boring, broken record. We should have stayed in Egypt. It would have been better that way. Why did we follow Moses? Why did we follow God? It's the same broken record story for all of us as well. Whenever life is tough, oh, I shouldn't have been a Christian. Why am I following God? Why am I trying to obey God? Why am I trying to obey the Bible? Nothing is working out. And it's the same tired excuse over and over and over again. Do you not agree with me? Do you think anything you say is new or original? It's the same thing. Oh, it would have been better if I had just not followed Christ, not followed God. You don't say those words because that's blasphemy, right? So you don't dare say those exact words. But you know in your heart you're regretting the decisions you made for the Lord. And that's not right. Am I the only one who's hot in here? Can we open that door, Joel? Can we open that real quick? Yeah, just prop a door, a chair against the door or something, or keep it open. Yeah. If you're cold, borrow a blanket. Wow, I said one door, he opens two. That's, wow, awesome. Joel. Yeah. If you're going to go, man, go all the way, right? Halfway. Open the whole thing. How do you feel as a leader? We shouldn't have followed. You know, when you made a decision, the right decision, you made the right decision, you did the right thing. As a Christian, you chose the correct path, and a bunch of people followed you on that correct path, and then there's hardship. You feel responsible, right? And they start complaining, and they start saying, man, we shouldn't have followed you. We shouldn't have come on this path. We shouldn't have. How do you feel as a leader? And you know what the Israelites say? Look at verse 4. After they did all this complaining, in verse 4 they say this. And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. They already have a leader. It's Moses, the one chosen by God. They already have a leader. But as they are going through this journey that God guided them through, remember, as they were traveling in the desert, God led them through a pillar of clouds during the day and a pillar of fire during the night. God led them all the way here through his chosen leader, Moses. And the people say, we don't want God's chosen leader because look where we're at right now. So let us choose a leader. When you rebel against God by talking behind the pastor's back, talking behind the teacher's back, talking behind the backs of students at church who want to do the right thing, who are trying so hard to accomplish God's will for the church. When you talk behind the backs of people at school who, they're not perfect, they commit sins, they make mistakes, they have a past, but right now they're trying to do the right thing. When you're going against them, you're saying, I want to choose my own leader. Thankfully, they can't. They don't, okay? So they don't choose their own leader. But if they were to choose their own leader, what kind of person would they have chosen? It would have been the person who said, let's go back to Egypt. It would have been the person who doesn't do God's will, who doesn't trust in God's promises, who doesn't want to go where God leads them. That's the leader they would have chosen. Who's your leader? Who do you follow? Who are you influenced by? It's tough, right? If life were easy, if it were easy to be a Christian, right? And everything just went really nice and smoothly, and if I didn't have any doubts, if I didn't struggle with my own sins, if I didn't have to come up with excuses why, despite the millions of times that God shows himself to me, despite the millions of times that God proves himself to me, I still reject him. And I need to come up with reasons. I'm running out of excuses, right? I'm too busy with school. I'm having a real tough life right now. Oh, there are just a million questions that still aren't answered. Scientifically, it's not proven. We come up with all these reasons and excuses, and God deals with each one of them as you live this life, and you're running out of excuses. You're running out of reasons not to follow God. It'd be nice if life were just really, God said, hey, believe in me. And go, oh my goodness, I have faith. Yay, I believe in God. And then we live perfectly forever and ever. That would have been great, but that's not the case. And so we look for other leaders who will do and say what I want. Not what God wants, but what I want. And then when I find somebody like that, why do you think so many people do church hopping? Going from one church to the next, to the next, to the next. It's not because they're looking for a better church, a more spiritual church, a church that follows God better. No, they're looking for somebody that fits their description of what the comfortable Christian life ought to look like. So many people go to mega churches because of that. Because when I go there, I can be totally anonymous. Nobody's going to ask me to be on the worship team. Nobody's going to ask me to serve small groups. Nobody's going to ask me to set up chairs. Nobody's going to ask me to come to church early. Nobody's going to call me if I miss church for 3 months. And that's just comfortable. That's who I want to follow. That's where I want to go. I do sound mad all the time when I'm preaching. I'm not mad. I'm just passionate. I sound mad right now? Yeah, I know. This is how I sound at home too, right? Yeah, see? I'm not mad at home. I'm passionate. Okay? But as leaders, Moses and Aaron, as they're hearing this, look at verse 5, in chapter 14, verse 5. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. I'm sorry again, but what did Moses and Aaron ever do wrong? And yet, the whole congregation, the whole group is complaining so loudly. Let's choose another leader. They lose all their strength and authority. They fall face down in front of everybody. That's pathetic. We make leaders do that from time to time. We make them come and apologize to me. I'm upset with you. I'm angry with you. And so I'm going to sit here until you come and apologize to me. Leaders aren't perfect, right? We all make mistakes. We all do. But it's tragic and pathetic when you guys behave in a way that causes the leader to fall face down. oh man, these kids aren't listening. They're like rebelling. They're going in a different way. It's their destruction. They're running towards their own destruction, their own hurt, and their own pain. They're really going to hurt themselves when they do this. But look at the way they're behaving. They're not listening to us. They're not loving us. They're not obeying us. And so what do the leaders have to do? Oh, guys, please come back. Please, come on. We'll treat you nicer. We won't call you out anymore. We won't, tell you that you're not going in the right direction. Whatever you do is okay. Everything you do is okay. Please come back. Please listen to us. Some of us, we cause the leaders to do that. We're like, yeah, that's what I thought. That's pathetic. You want to be a leader someday? You think you want to be a leader? You think you can lead? Imagine if you had followers like you. Verse 5, then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. But here's a great thing. Moses and Aaron, they're the big dudes, right? They're the head leaders, right? And they're in this crisis. Look what happens. Look at verse 6. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes. These are two of the 11 guys from the tribes, right? So it's Moses and Aaron up here, and then you have the 11 tribes, and then you had each of the tribes send a leader. And Joshua and Caleb were two of those from two of the tribes. When Moses and Aaron fell face down, these two guys got up in support of their leaders. Look, verse 7, and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Man, I wish I had people like that. If I were a Moses, of course I consider myself to be a Moses, right? I'm not like one of these other guys. I'm not one of these guys that say, oh no, let's go back to Egypt. No, I never identify with those people, right? I always identify with like the best dude in the Bible, right? Oh yeah, Moses. Like if I'm a Moses, right? I would love to have a Caleb and a Joshua. When everybody is so against me, and I lose all authority. I lose all hope. I lose all strength. And two people stand up and say, what are you guys doing? What do you think you're doing? And the amazing thing, listen very carefully. This is not a personal thing. Caleb and Joshua do not say, hey, we should follow Moses and Aaron. They've led us this far. They've never let us down. So let's continue to follow these guys. Let's give them a chance. Let's give them another day. That's not what they say. In their speech, they're implying that these guys are following God. And we need to do the same. We can take this land. Don't be afraid of the people. These people in this land, they're not protected. God protects us, and He will lead us to battle. Man. What kind of leader do you want to be? In the sermon title, there are two things, right? Truth and trust. Trust and truth. Speaking the truth the way God tells it. And then trusting in God to keep His promises. That's what leaders do. It's not about charisma or a loud voice. Okay, dude, it's not about a loud voice. Come on. It's not about charisma or a loud voice. It's about telling the truth the way God said it, and then trusting in Him to keep His promises. That's what leaders do. I want to go back to one of Pastor Wes's main points, is that, you want to be a leader, first of all, you have to be a Christian. You have to have been prepared by God over the years, and you obey Him and you follow Him, and then you're where you're at because God brought you here. There are a lot of leaders in this world. Social justice leaders, very famous these days, very popular. Economic leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, educational leaders, social media leaders. There's lots of leaders in this world. And we all want to be a part of that. We all want to be, right? Dude, remember when you guys were signing up for the seminars? Remember that? Right? And a whole bunch of you felt so holy. You felt so righteous because you're at a retreat. You felt so in touch with God that you all went up and signed up for sacrifice. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this seminar on sacrifice. And you all wrote your name there, right? And then you found out, you heard from someone somewhere. You know the dude who's doing the thing on influence? He's a YouTuber. Scratch my name off of the sacrifice. I'm going to go to the YouTuber guy. Admit it. Because we all want to be somebody in this world. We want to be some kind of a leader. We don't want to live this life in, what is that word? Uselessness, but there's a word for it. Ineffective. Just we don't want that. I want to be somebody. I want to be something. And we see all of these leaders in this world. We want to be a part of that, right? But can I tell you something? All of those things have a shelf life, a lifespan. They all have an ending point. To me, that's silly. I don't want to do something and accomplish something that's going to disappear after I die. That's going to be gone after I'm gone. I want to be involved in something eternal, forever. And that's what being a leader as a Christian is. As we follow Christ and lead others to Christ, that stuff is eternal. That stuff is forever. So Caleb and if Caleb started it, right? He started it, and then Joshua, he joins. And he says, yes, we can do this. And they gave a speech even more eloquent than Caleb's previous speech. And so does this convince the people? Does this make the people say, man, that's a better speech? Yeah, let's go. No, okay. Look at verse 10. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. You're like, what? What? That's so stupid. We're not that different. We don't hear the faith of the words that our leaders speak. We don't hear the faithfulness, the trust. We don't hear the dependence on God when they speak. All we see are the things in front of us, and we already made up our minds not to follow these guys. And so even though Caleb and Joshua say this amazingly truthful and faithful thing, they don't hear it. Hey, let's stone these guys. Hey, here, let's go. Here's the thing. Leaders, if you're a leader, if you actually identify with Moses, if you actually identify with Caleb and Joshua, where you're trying to do the right thing, and there's all these people against you, right? And you've led people a certain way, but things aren't going right. Things aren't going well. And then people are against you and they want to attack you. They want to rebel against you and things like that. Here's the thing. Moses and Aaron, they fell face down. They're losing hope. There's all these things, right? But here's the thing, guys. The good news is this. God is always on your side. Okay? Though if the entire world be against you, God is on your side. Look at verse 11. Verse 10. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. And the Lord said to Moses, because God is on Moses' side, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me in spite of all the miraculous signs I performed among them? I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them. You think God's not scary? The only reason you're still alive, despite your rebellion, despite your laziness, despite your sins, your unrepentant sins, the only reason you're still standing is because of God's great mercy. You think God's not scary? God says, how much longer do I have to be patient with these people? I've shown them over and over again that I am real, that I love them, that I am their God, that I created them, that I'm leading them to a better place. And they still rebel against me. How much longer? And God says, I'm going to just destroy them. You think God's not scary? Verse 12, I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them. But, he's talking to Moses, I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they. This is totally and perfectly within God's rights to do this. They're not obeying me. They're mocking me. They're not following me. And I gave them a chance. I gave them another chance and another chance over and over and over again. And now they bring you to a point where you're on your knees in front of these people. I've had it. It's perfectly within God's rights to say, I'm going to start over. I'm going to get rid of these people. Moses, you're faithful. I'm going to raise you up. And I'm going to create a great nation through you. It is perfectly within his rights. And it would have been perfectly within Moses' rights to say, thank you, Lord. Finally, someone who understands me. Finally, someone who understands the pains that for 40 years, these people, oh my goodness, they were a pain in the, A double crooked letters. I mean, they were like, oh, finally, God, how much longer do we have to contend with these rebellious people? Thank you, Lord. I am ready. Take me now. It's perfectly within Moses' rights to say, God, that's a great idea. Let's do exactly that because I'm kind of sick and tired of these people too. Perfectly within his rights. But that's not the kind of leader Moses is. Look at verse 13. Moses said to the Lord, well, then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power, you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put these people to death all at one time, the nations who have heard this report will say about you will say, the Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on oath. So he slaughtered them in the desert. You know what Moses is saying right now? He's saying, God, if you destroy them now, then all the people who hear this story will say, you know what? God promised to bring them to the promised land, but he wasn't able to. He didn't have the power. And so then he just killed them all. That's not what happened, right? That's not exactly what happened, but that's what people are going to say. What Moses is saying is, God, people are going to take glory away from you. God, people aren't going to honor you. What he's doing is he's trying to tell God, no, please don't do this. But look at the argument he uses. He doesn't say, look at these people, they're so sad. Look at these people, they're so pitiful. They don't know what they're doing. God, look at them with mercy and grace. He doesn't do that. He says, God, my focus is on you. My interest is about you, about who you are, your glory, your fame, your reputation. Of course, Moses loved his people. He did. Made many sacrifices for them. But at the end of the day, it was about him and God. That's what a Christian leader is. Christian leaders, so many times we compromise because of our pity towards the congregation. We compromise because we put their needs over God's glory. We put their apparent needs over God's desire and God's will. And we make mistakes because of that. We care about it. Pastor Wes, me, all the teachers, we care about you guys a lot. We have a difficult time showing it, but we do. We care about you a lot. But if we have to choose between you and God, make no mistake, we choose God. As followers, if you have a pastor like that, you should be so happy. You should be so pleased, because you know what that means? That means that how the pastor feels about you won't determine how faithful he is to God, how loving he is, how obedient he is to God. God tells us to love you guys, to lead you guys. And so our opinions of you, our emotions towards you will not affect our faithfulness to God. This is a source of security for you. But if we choose you over God, that means the minute you make us mad, the minute you rebel against us, the minute you cause us to feel like, oh, this ministry isn't worth it, we're out of here. Because it depended on you, because you were above God. But if God is above us all, then we're going to stay here until God leads us somewhere else, until God does that. It's a source of security for all of us. Moses says, God, I care about what people say about you. I care about honoring you, revering you. He doesn't say a word about the people. He has nothing to say. They're rebelling in the face of God. What kind of leader are you? What kind of leader do you want to be? There are a lot of characteristics of, and there's so many books on leadership. So many. Everybody's interested. but as Christian leaders, and that's who we all are. Trust in God and speak the truth. Speak the truth and trust in God. Eventually, Joshua becomes the next leader of Israel, right? After Moses dies. And this leadership continues. Some of you guys, especially some of the younger ones, you guys are like, this is like going over your head. You're like, okay, Moses is how old right now? 120 years old? I'm only 13, dude. What's all this leadership stuff? This applies to all of us in one way or another. Even 8-year-olds like my son display faith in God, trusting in God. This is for all of us. What kind of leader do you want to be? Stop being a wimpy, weak follower of the culture of this world. Oh my goodness. Just a couple hours ago, my daughter was trying to teach me the floss, right? I feel like, I know I'm a little late to the game, right? But I feel like I should know how to, But as I was messing up terribly and as my daughter was laughing at me, I thought to myself, you know what? What am I doing? Why do we have to follow the ways of the world? Right? If we just lay it all bare, if we lay it all that, yeah, you guys are all like Christians, you guys are looking like Christians today, wearing all these hoodies that say, lead on it, and you guys are like reading the Bible and praising God and stuff like that. You guys all look like Christians, but some of you guys even smell like Christians. It's awesome. But look, if we lay it all bare, and if we talk real, if we really want to talk real, in Korean it's ganokuyege, right? If we just lay it all open, lay it all bare, and then talk truthfully, what kind of a Christian are you? Right? Brian did something kind of sneaky and tricky today in his seminar. Hey guys, what are you influenced by? What are like the biggest influences for you, right? And then you guys named all these celebrities and the NBA and Nike. He was wearing all Nike and stuff. And he named all these things, and then he's like so sneaky, right? He goes, hey guys, I noticed none of you guys said Jesus. That was sneaky, man. That was kind of... But isn't that true? Don't blame the guy. If you would have said Jesus, then it wouldn't have worked. What kind of Christian are you? What kind of Christian leader are you? What kind of Christian influence are you? We don't have time tonight. Maybe tomorrow. To talk about it for reals. This is the last thing we're going to read, verse 20. It says this, the Lord replied, I have forgiven them as you asked. There's still going to be consequences. There's still going to be consequences. But I have forgiven them as you asked. That's leadership. When God says, I will do as you asked. To have leaders like that on your side, when you guys are messing up like crazy people, and you have leaders praying for you, God, this guy's going through a tough time right now. She's going through some difficulties right now. God, please just be a little bit more patient with him. Be a little bit more patient with her. When you have leaders praying like that for you, and God says, I will do as you ask. Oh, man, that's what this family of God is. That's what this community of God is. And that's what you ought to be doing for others as well.